50% increased risk of dementia, 32% increased risk of stroke, 29% increased risk of heart disease, and 68% increased risk of hospitalization. These are statistics from the CDC of the impact of loneliness and isolation on our older adults. Welcome to the third episode of our 10-episode myth-busting series. Today, we're going to talk with Jill Vitale-Aussem, the CEO of Christian Living Communities, about whether aging at home is really right for everyone. Curious? Stay tuned after a word from our sponsors.
This incredible show made possible by our wonderful sponsors, Assured Senior Living, Love, It's What We Do, and Serenity Engage, where care connects. Now, a brief message from Serenity Engage. Serenity connects aging service providers, older adults, and their loved ones in a single network. Our web, mobile, and smart assistance products power the network that enables real-time, HIPAA-compliant communication, collaboration, and education. When we care together, providers increase revenue and lower expenses, older adults receive better care, and family has greater peace of mind.
Welcome back. And yes, we all want to be at home, but is being at home the best spot for all of us?
I don't know. I think there are some things to talk about. So let's introduce our guest today, Jill Vitale-Aussem.
Well, and Jill, so thankful that you are joining us. Your impact in the industry, from Christian Living Communities to Eat an Alternative to your amazing book that you wrote, which I am blanking on the title. So could you please share the title with us? I'm so sorry.
It is Disrupting the Status Quo of Senior Living, a Mind Shift.
Yes. And with that being said, kind of let's just get right into it. What are your thoughts about people aging at home and being like, that is their only solution?
Yeah. And so I would say I don't want to age at home, like in the home I'm in right now, right? Because I see the opportunities of living in community, and that can look different for different people. So I'm really excited to talk with you about this because I see so much focus on policy makers, the media, everybody is focused on aging in place at home, which can be really, really great for some people. But I get really concerned that we are setting people up for failure in some situations, because people don't think about the fact that, as you get older, if you're living in place at your home, your world starts to shrink. If you can't drive at night anymore, your neighbors start to move away. Your life starts to change. And what those statistics you shared, Catherine, about loneliness and isolation, really, really dangerous. So people don't always think about that impact of being in this place and now you're alone. But it can work well if you live in a community where you've got, neighbors close by and family and all these people. But a lot of people don't have that. And there's also, is your home really designed to age successfully there? Does living at home provide you the opportunity for meaningful purpose in your life and continued growth and learning, which we also know are essential to living a long and healthy life? So I have concerns about it. The other thing, of course, is costs and the staffing challenges that we are facing everywhere.
That's what I was going to add. Yeah.
Okay.
Just that. You took the words out of my mouth. We're already facing shortages, right? And costs are exceeding. And when we're at home, it's more that one-on-one type need, right? You need one caregiver for, let's say, one home. And in a group setting, it may be 1 to, 10, 8, 12, whatever is right for that group.
Yeah.
How do we get people to understand that? Because I feel everyone's just like, well, you need to age at home, and we're going to do home health at home, and we're going to do all these things at home, and we're going to have plenty of people that will do that. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
We don't. Yeah.
Right. And it's not, and it's so much less efficient, right? You've got people driving out to people's houses. And like you said, it's one-on-one. So you see people end up in these crisis situations where there's no one who can come to take care of them. And, that especially can happen when people are hiring people to come in and help directly, right? Rather than going through an agency. But yeah, and costs are going up. I think, last year, 2021, the average cost across the country of home care was $26 an hour. I don't know what the average is right now, but I know it's going up, right?
It's higher.
I can tell you in Denver Metro, we're 42 to 44 an hour in Denver Metro. And I've
Crazy.
got to imagine nationally, we've got to be above 30, 3 an hour. And I'm really concerned, though, for the rate raises in Jan of 2023 here, because I think people are finally realizing, my costs are way higher than I looked at the last quarter. And what am I going to do here? And it's just concerning that we're just so simple fixes, right? We'll just age at home. And I don't know, I think we're just doing a disservice for how that is getting messaged.
I agree. And I think what we need to do is really, educate people on it's what are all the other things that matter, right? The financial impact. Are you going to have, strong social engagement and relationships? But we don't talk about any of that. And I think we need to start that. I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, I've seen relatives of mine who kind of end up being prisoners in their own home. And that that decline and kind of the circling the drain of the healthcare. I mean, not healthcare, but their health status. So yeah, I'm really glad you both are focused on this.
Yeah. And, I see that people want to live at home as long as they can and live healthy and well at home. But the moment that you start missing taking your medications, feeling lonely, feeling like or maybe you can't drive anymore. These are the signs, and hopefully you catch it a little bit before these things happen. I can give you a real life scenario. My mom moved into memory care, and she was the glue. She was the social glue in their marriage. And so while my mom's friends and their friends over the 60 years they were married would check in on Dad, it wasn't the same. So he was alone, and he was lonely and sad. And within a few months, he had 4 falls in 1 month and was hospitalized each time. So that 68% increase of hospitalizations, I saw it. And then he said, okay, that's when he said, all right, I will look at moving into a community. And he looked around for where his friends were. And what does that tell you? It's about that social engagement. He wanted it to go somewhere where he had friends.
Jill, do you think we're missing a messaging or a model or design component for aging services? How we're presenting it, how we're packaging the whole continuum, whether it's from independent to skilled. Do you think we're missing what the actual older adult or consumer wants?
I think we're starting to see a shift. People are so afraid of losing their independence, right? And that's partly why people don't want to leave their homes. And there's also ageism, internalized ageism, and the whole, I don't want to go live with a bunch of old people. And so I think, it's design of our services and supports so that it's really clear. People generally end up having more independence living in a community, right? In the right kind of community. And then really helping people to think about aging in a different way, I think is really important for our field. And then also for those of us, and we have a home care division at Christian Living Communities, Rhythms Home Care. What else can we be doing? Are there efficient ways because there are always going to be people who want to live in their home, and great. So how could we start thinking about things differently to make sure people have those opportunities for socialization and meaningful purpose in their lives? I don't know what the answer is right now, but I think there are a lot of opportunities to think about that. But, there are some people, when I was talking with a resident at one of our communities, and she was living in a condo after her husband had passed away, and she's healthy, right? But she was like, I look around, everybody in this condo building has their own lives. And she's like, I'm lonely, and I'm getting in a place where I can have, a meaning in my life and friendships and,
have meals with people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Even just sit down at the same table and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Easy access, right, to other people.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head, I think, with independence. So I think one of the big drives around stay at home is cost. Number one, they're afraid of the cost, but if you start adding up all the costs for staying at home, you might be reaching equivalents to
Or
moving
less.
into a community.
I think a lot of times it's less.
To move into a community might be less over time. That's totally true. And then the idea that I have to give up. And Jill, it may have been you actually in a previous discussion where we talked about the idea that they're always older adults feel like things are being taken away from them left and right. I can't drive anymore. I can't manage my own books anymore. I can't make food anymore. I can't, whatever it is, I can't walk anymore. So they feel like everything's being taken away. And really, I believe that living communities for older adults are all about how do we create as much independence for that person as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I would say on top of that too is we've got to look at more personalization in the larger setting of care.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it's just easier to assume, well, I'm not going to have any personal touch. It's going to be how they're going to do it for everybody, right? That's going to be the mindset of, well, you're in a room of 20 people. How can they really know what I want? And it's not just enough for everybody. I think that's a stigma that has to be, that is being changed. I also think in practice, it's being improved every day.
Right.
And I think we just have to remove some of the old labels that have been associated for 50 plus years to this industry of you go live in and move in that hallway that great grandma was in, right?
Yeah.
That didn't smell good.
Right.
That was, all the things, right, that we have from our.
Well, and that you have to get up, everybody gets up at 7:30, whether you like it or not, right? Or
it's like a boot camp.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Or that some, 40-year-old executive director is going to tell you how to live your life. Or, you know what I mean? Like that's it. And that's not the case in many cases. I think our field is having really an evolution. At CLC, we talk about, we don't see the people who live in our communities as customers. If you live in one of our communities, you're a citizen.
Right.
And that means, having your life the way you want it, not just that, but how are you going to give back to the community? How are you going to make it a better place for everyone? And that really resonates with people.
I would think so, because everybody wants to contribute. Nobody wants charity. Nobody wants everything done for them. And the ability to contribute is what gives us a sense of accomplishment and a sense of purpose and a sense of being part of this community. And I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, Jill, with we can get creative and reconfigure things. So we have a blank slate here. And as you said, we are seeing the evolution beginning, and probably that started maybe early before COVID, but really kind of kicked in during COVID and after. And Francis, I think you said, I can't remember if it was before the show or on the show, that we're dealing with the after effects of COVID still. COVID itself, yes, we're out of the major part of it, but we're still dealing with the impact of it. The idea of reconfiguring things, what if home care was part of every living community and you could start to provide some home care to people in the neighborhood around you? What if you could invite some of the people in the neighborhood around you to come and participate in your activities? What if we had a way to extend the services to the people in your neighborhood and eventually they become part of your community? I don't know, but I think that there's opportunity to reconfigure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on with that.
I think we have to look beyond the four walls, and I use that loosely, of a aging community, right? We have to say it's a community that is just within a community, that it's not anything different than the neighborhood next door, but yet we still look at it as this
separate,
this bubble wrap.
It's a separate
special
thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be
it doesn't,
separate.
right? And I think that's
scary when it's separate. It's like, oh, I'm going here and now I'm going to be separated from all of the things I'm used to.
And
it doesn't, it doesn't have to be that way. Even, I'm a strong believer, like living in a community is the way to go. But that community, like you're saying, doesn't have to be on this campus that is
Right.
a senior living community. I happen to think that's a great option, but there are other ways we need to start thinking about things, because I'm concerned about, how many people are going to end up in crisis because they are, there's a gerontologist who calls it rotting in place instead of aging in place, right? And then when you have that situation, you're more likely to need to go to a nursing home. You're more likely to need higher levels of care, and then decisions are made really in a crisis situation, and it's just not. It's not how I want to age, and it's not how I want to see other people age, right? Have the information you need, and if you decide you want to stay at home and you don't care if anybody else is around, that's your choice. But I don't think people are even aware of all of these impacts.
I would say, don't you think though COVID showed us that at any age, isolation when we quarantine has an impact on everybody's mental health? I'm not saying just older adults, but think about what we did with the separation of kids from schools. They lost that social group. Think about the impact of us being when you felt you really couldn't leave your house for, what was it, a good 2-3 weeks there? You're like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like, can I go to the grocery store? Can I not? Should I? I mean, all these different things you were like trying to figure out on the fly. Now impact that when you've done something for 80 years the same way, and all of a sudden it's got to flip the next day. Mm-hmm. And now and now you lose that social circle, and you're stuck in this circle that's compressed. I mean, I would just say, look at the impact COVID had on everybody emotionally, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
And now that was big isolation. And
and look how it traumatized us. Really, when we had all those really strong restrictions, about maybe a year, and we're all still traumatized by it. And imagine if that's the way we had to live for the rest of our lives, we would not do it, because it's too hard, and it's too destructive to our human spirit, right, and our well-being.
I've seen more of our residents, more older adults, that start in a depressive state coming from home by themselves, and they get out of it within, I would say, anywhere between 2 to 6 months. And you see them noticeably reducing their amount of depressive meds because they're around people. And again, it's not around necessarily, even staff helps. Yeah. Family visits more often. You have more engagement. And again, even if someone doesn't want to do the activity, let's say it's, crocheting, but they're just hearing it go on, it still creates a stimuli. And that's the part I think people need to understand is, you don't have to do everything, but just seeing and hearing it goes on has such a big impact.
Around you. So my husband is from New York, and he's an introvert, a total, the worst introvert you can ever imagine. And he goes out of our condo to Panera or Starbucks or something to work so that he can have people around him. If he sat in the car, he doesn't interact with them, but he just needs that activity, right? That's really, it's kind of what we're talking about, this whole rotting in place.
That's a new one.
Thank you for saying that, because you can see that it can happen very easily, especially if family's not around or there's not resources that are looking after that older adult. Yeah. I think that we've hit on some really big things. What do you guys think? Have we busted the myth that
I think we have.
age at home?
But I really want to pick Jill's brain though on what can the industry or somebody do as an action. We want to be action based, right? Whether it's a micro action or a macro, but what do you think we can do, from that industry to help with whether it's the education or just that understanding of the importance of this?
I think whenever somebody interacts with our communities, is helping them to understand, even if they decide I'm not going to move into your community, helping them understand those things that are important as we age. I always recommend, Ryan Frederick has a great book called Right Place, Right Time. And it's and that works for people at every age. I actually read that book, and it changed when my husband and I were looking to buy a house. It changed my mind about where we were going to buy a house. Because it's not about physical structure, right? It's about all the things that are around you or not around you. So I think those kinds of things, and I think we need to continue doing the work on having, Bob Kramer, founder of NIC with Nexus Insights, talks about creating a culture that pulls people in. right? Rather than people being pushed in because of needs that they have that they can't be met at home. It's having people be proactive and creating those cultures where people are like, hey, I'm missing out by not being in community. So I think it's education and continuing to do the work within our organizations to continue evolving.
Continue evolving.
I like that.
I love it. And educating on different options.
So I think
Love
as we all agreed, aging at home may be right, but it's definitely not right for everyone.
everybody. All right, myth busted.
Myth
busted.
busted.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you.
Yes, Jill.
As always.
As always. And we appreciate your voice in the industry and all the wonderful work that you and Christian Living Communities continue to do on a daily and regular basis for all those within and with outside of your community. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you both.
All right, it is time for Mavericks Takes. So this is where Francis and I each take a minute or two and talk about an article. Can I have the clock?
Yes, you can.
If
You're going to get it to work?
If it doesn't bing, I'm going to be watching it. So we have this fancy little clock
All
now
right.
because we're totally technology people.
Well, it's better than using
All
our
right.
phones, I think.
That's true.
So,
Okay,
all right.
you have 2 minutes.
Am
Go.
I am up. All right. So this is an article from U.S. News, the health section that was released, I want to say probably about a week ago. And it talks about, the title is a little interesting. It's things nursing homes don't want you to know. And I think it's a little bit, I'm not sure I like the
It
title.
made you read it.
Made me read it,
right?
though.
That's what they want.
And some questions that they're saying people should be asking in general. Who actually owns the nursing home?
I think that's interesting. A lot of people
Yep.
don't know that.
How's staffing at night? Does it change? Another one is what's the kind of current infection control policies? Like, what are you
Okay.
doing for that? And
Is that part of will my mom or dad be isolated?
that's what I didn't get that. I get more of the shortages that we're seeing, that they're struggling to hire RNs, they're struggling with higher turnover. There might be too many residents per caregiver. Another big thing they talked about is staffing ratios. And this, to me, when I hear staffing ratios, like, what does that really mean? And if you think about it, it's how much time can a staff member spend with my loved one?
Yeah.
It's not the ratio that actually matters, right? So if I have, let's say, a 1-to-10 ratio, that means technically in 60 minutes, I can only have 6 minutes per resident.
Right.
But if I have a 1-to-4 ratio, I could have 15 minutes per resident. What's going to be the better environment? So it's just being more mindful of the questions that we need to ask. I think there's a lot of research going on. Educate yourself as you learn and prepare for your aging experience.
Such great questions to be thinking about. And that ties right into my
turn.
topic,
My
right?
turn. My turn.
that ties right into my
Your
topic.
topic,
You
yeah.
gave me a little more than 2 minutes.
Because my fingers are a
Okay.
little fat.
Oh.
So. I'm not as.
I think I gave you a little less.
Yeah.
So my topic really is about resistance and resilience together.
Ooh.
And this actually comes from, I do the Calm app every
Mhm.
morning. So I do a little bit of meditation. I do a little bit of reading right after that and a little bit of writing. And that's my morning routine. And as part of that, this morning, the topic was about resistance, the things that we resist.
Yeah.
Often it takes more energy to resist something than actually doing the thing that we're resisting. So
Wait, say
if
that
we-
one more time.
So the energy it takes for me to resist, I'm going to use the aging experience
Okay.
as the example. The energy that it takes me to resist moving into senior living
Oh.
is often more energy than it would take to actually move in to senior living
That makes a lot of
and
sense.
begin to enjoy the benefits of it.
But that could be anything in life. But
Anything at all.
Your
It could
resistance
be.
to anything.
Yes.
Any change.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Tamara Levitt is the person
That's
who
powerful.
voices on the Calm app, and her topic of resistance was winter, which I can relate to. You would think I've been here 50 years in the state of Colorado.
This isn't winter,
would
though.
think.
You know this is.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But it snowed last night a little
No.
bit.
Colorado doesn't have real winter. Just
I
wanna put that out
know,
there.
right? You're from the Midwest.
Rid-
I know. So just that idea of resistance. What are we resisting? Why are we resisting it? And then resilience. So being in the moment and being able to come back from something, there's a resilience ratio in each of us. How quickly do we come back from something that upset our apple cart?
Now, can we improve our ability?
Absolutely. It's a muscle. It's a muscle. It's just like any other muscle that you have. You absolutely can do that.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So there's your challenge for the day. And I beat the clock.
Beat the clock. And the clock doesn't ding, which still bothers me.
I know, and I don't know why. We'll fix it.
All right. So more big announcements as always. We are back with Collaboration in Aging, and it is occurring September 26th and 27th, 2023 at the Denver Convention Center in Denver, Colorado. And this year, we're definitely stepping it up from last year. Last year was an amazing event, connected with some fabulous people. But this year, we are really going to put the conference on its head.
Yep.
And how are we going to start it off? What is going to be our big opening keynote?
We have just an incredible keynote speaker. Her name is Stephanie.
Stephanie Staples.
Sorry, thank you, Stephanie Staples. She is a nurse who kind of burned out, and that's part of her topic. This is how burnout happens. We can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to happen this way. She's very, very energetic.
Yes.
And the whole concept of our event is to are we dead? Okay. The whole concept of the event is to make it unconventional. You will get information and education and experience here that you would never get anywhere else. So, all right.
We had a little bit of technical difficulty.
Yeah.
Apparently the full battery was not full, so we apologize about that. But in the end, we really appreciate it.